Hello and welcome to the YouTube channel for Catch. My name is Sam and I am the founder and lead coach here at Catch. Unshakable confidence is the key to getting everything that you want in life and dating. So on this channel we talk about everything to do with confidence and mindset and how to implement that in your dating and relationship life. Today we are going to be covering a topic suggested by one of our subscribers called Steve at Join Success Coaching. Thank you, Steve, very much for the suggestion. And if you haven't already, go and check out Steve at Join Success Coaching. And the request was for some recommended reading for someone who is starting to build their confidence or on their dating and relationship journey and wanting to change the outcomes in their dating life. We'll run through a few of the books that we recommend, and they're also all in the description box below. We've linked to an Amazon recommended reading list to take the work out of it for you. So if any of the books in this video sound intriguing, you can just go to the description box and the link will take you straight there to buy them from Amazon. And if you're interested in coaching or any of our workbooks, that information is all in the description box below as well. What you'll notice as we run through these books is that they are very focused on mindset and confidence and how to improve your life in general. There's actually only one book that we're going to be talking about, which is dating specific, and that in itself still comes with a health warning, because what we talk about on this channel is how confidence is the key, and once you feel confident and worthy within yourself, you can then access that inner intelligence, coach yourself and figure out what is it that I want to do that feels authentic to me, that will get me closer to the outcome that I want. So these books will help you get to that point and help you get better outcomes in dating and in life overall, because you would have built the skills that you need to build your confidence and then decide what is best for you, more so than specific dating advice or a playbook. And we do actually have another video about some of the issues with dating advice at the moment and how they do just tend to tell, a lot of dating advice tends to tell people exactly what they need to do, which might be helpful in the short term, but for a lot of people doesn't feel authentic or doesn't help them in the long term, because it gets them through a couple of dates, but not any further. So we'll link that as well. So the first book that we're going to talk about, and if I've got it physically, I'll show it, is called Mindset by Dr. Carol Dweck. Now, what this book is about is it talks about the difference between a growth mindset and a fixed mindset, whereby a fixed mindset is the belief that the skills and attributes and traits that we have, we're born with. So when we're born, we're either smart or we're funny or, quick-witted, able to do maths, able to do English, any of those sorts of skills. And that doesn't change throughout our life. So we can make the most of the skills and the traits and characteristics that we have, or not. But then it also compares that with the belief in a growth mindset, which is, yes, I might be born with certain talents and skills, but actually it's the belief that we can build those skills and learn and grow and change throughout our lifetime. And throughout the book, Dr. Carol Dweck and her team did a number of studies with children in schools whereby they instilled the belief in them of a growth mindset, i.e., they might not start out good at a particular subject, but they have the ability to develop and grow and improve those skills, versus some children who were brought up being told by teachers earlier on in life, you have these skills or you don't, and then looked at for the group where they started to teach them about growth mindset, what it did to their grades. And what it found is that even when you took two groups that came from a similar background, for the group where you instilled the belief of a growth mindset, they would often then believe more in themselves, believe that they could have what they want in life, go after their dreams, and actually see their behaviour and their grades improve because they were applying themselves and believing that if they applied themselves and worked and believed at their core that they were intelligent, it was just about working hard and getting the support and trying and asking for help, that they would then improve. And that was found consistently over several different studies. They scaled it to different schools in different areas, hundreds of children, and the results were consistent. So what that teaches us in terms of life and dating is that we can change and we can achieve things that perhaps we didn't think were possible for us because of conditioning, because we were brought up with certain cultural beliefs or being told things by our friends and our family and teachers and peers about what we can and cannot do. Whereas what this is saying is that if we can believe in ourselves and our ability to grow, that is then self-fulfilling, and we can develop those skills, we can create new outcomes, we can get our dreams, whether that is building a skill, or it could be going after a new job, a new career, learning something new, and in fact building our confidence, any of our personality traits, how well we socialise, and how well we show up on dates and build healthy and secure, long-lasting connections with people. So this is the book that we would recommend starting with, because you first need to believe that you can change your life and that you have the power to do that by growing and learning and changing yourself. And that's what this book gives you, is that belief in yourself and your ability to break free from your current circumstances and get something different for your life. So highly recommend. The second foundational book that we would recommend is called Cybernetics, and looks like this, and that is by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And there's been several versions. It's a slightly older book, but you can get the most up-to-date one. This one's called Updated and Expanded, but this is still a few years old, so that there might even be another one now. And the premise of this book is all about self-image and how that affects the outcomes that we get in life. And cybernetics as an area was originally studied by a plastic surgeon who is Dr. Maxwell Maltz, I believe. And what he noticed is that he often had people coming in to seeking plastic surgery because they were feeling low on confidence because of a certain physical trait that they had. Maybe it was a scar, or they weren't happy with certain features on their face or their body. And for some of those people, once they had the surgery, the plastic surgery, and corrected whatever that insecurity was for them, it built their confidence so much that they were almost a completely different person. And he gives examples of salespeople or people who were in a career, and that career was maybe stalling and not doing so well because they didn't believe in themselves. And as soon as they got the surgery and their confidence improved, their outcomes in their work completely changed. Now, what's interesting about that is that it wasn't necessarily the surgery or how they looked that would make a difference in their career. It was the subsequent increase in confidence that came from them seeing themselves differently and not feeling held back or insecure by this specific physical characteristic of theirs. And that's what made the difference in their life. So it was actually the mental shift, not the physical one. And you could access that mental shift and improvement in confidence without necessarily getting plastic surgery. What was even more interesting from his observation and detailed in this book, is that some people came in for surgery, plastic surgery, would get the plastic surgery and afterwards would actually not see a difference in themselves. And even if he showed pictures and said, look, this is what you looked like before, this is what was after, you can clearly see a physical difference between these two pictures. Some of the patients said that they didn't feel any difference and didn't see much of a difference before and after. So even though they'd had the plastic surgery, their confidence didn't change in the way that the first group did. And for those people, the trajectory of their life and their life outcomes didn't shift significantly in the time that he was in touch with them post the plastic surgery. So what that then took him down was a route of study of actually the psychology of plastic surgery and self-image and how we see ourselves and the importance of that self-image and how that relates to life outcomes. Because if you could shift the self-image, regardless of whether you had plastic surgery, you could change your life trajectory and your outcomes, regardless of how you look. So he then went down this route of looking at psychology and how can we change our self-image. So for example, there were some people that he spoke to and studied who saw themselves as only being able to sell X amount of £1 million worth of revenue per year. And these salespeople were put into lots of different roles, lots of different geographies for their company, selling to lots of different businesses, and whatever happened, they would always sell the same amount per year of around, say, $5 million US, I think it was, regardless of who they were selling to and how many clients and the size of that client. And that was because they saw themselves as someone who could sell at that amount, but not necessarily more than that. And so what it then dives into is how can we start to break free of some of those self-limiting beliefs and how we see ourselves, build our beliefs, build our confidence, shift our identity and how we see ourselves to then achieve more and get more of what we want out of life. And a lot of what we teach on this channel is about that. So how do you build your confidence and break free of some of the beliefs that we're taught by friends or family or society about how things are, and actually become more empowered within ourselves to go, no, this is what I can achieve in my life, whether personal or professional, this is how I want it to look, and believing that you are the type of person and the version of yourself that can achieve that. So this is a great book. And actually I got switched onto this by another YouTuber originally called Dylan James, who's a mindset coach. So if you haven't checked out Dylan, also check out his channel, he's great. But this is Cybernetics. The next two books that we're going to talk about, so Mindset and Cybernetics, were very much foundational and believing that you can change in some of the factors that underpin change, so having a growth mindset and your self-image. These two books then tackle really helpful skills or common things that we see that get in the way of people building their confidence and changing their behaviour and therefore the outcomes that they get in life. The first of these is called Fearless by Dr. Pippa Grange. I'll show you that there. And Dr. Pippa Grange has worked with several large companies and individuals, but also most notably the England football team, working with Gareth Southgate, and that was in recent years. And what she looks at in this book is how fear can hold us back. And specifically, there's two types of fear. So there's being triggered and the fight or flight response in the moment. So that's something that feels like an imminent threat. Our nervous system activates and we go into that fight or flight, freeze or fawn mode, and we figure out how we're going to respond. And that's all based on previous beliefs, experiences, and automatic patterns of thinking. But what's even more interesting, and what I found more useful about this book, was it also talks about a general underlying fear called the not good enough or not worthy fear. And that can cause more negative and intrusive thoughts, low levels of depression and anxiety, and actually not believing in ourselves and holding ourselves back and not feeling confident or worthy for the things that we want in life. And because of that, we end up self-sabotaging. So it might be not applying for that job, not putting ourselves out there with friendships, social life, and or dating. Or once we start dating, because we don't feel good enough, we can develop more of an insecure attachment style and either be needing clingy with the people that we're dating or push them away because we're scared of that intimacy. So what this dives into is how that not good enough fear can present in our lives and how it can look and ways that we can overcome it. And it's based on Pippa's or Dr. Granger's experience working with individuals and groups of people as well, so teams. So a really useful book, and the not good enough fear we see a lot in clients that we work with. And actually the workbook that we do have for sale on the website is some of the most common beliefs that we see that get in the way of people getting what they want and techniques to change them. And one of them is that I am not good enough fear or belief that might sit under the surface. It might subconsciously be there. We might not even recognize it, but we can identify that it's there because we feel anxious or doubtful or struggle to believe that we can have certain things in our life. So how can we identify where we have that lack of confidence or lack of belief and change that? And that's what our workbook goes through. That's in the description box below. The fourth book is called The Power of Now, and I don't have a physical copy of it, but again, it's linked in the Amazon recommended reading list down below, and that's by Eckhart Tolle. And what The Power of Now talks about is when we're on a process or going through a journey of change, growing, building our confidence, and starting to believe that we can change the outcomes that we have in life and change our circumstances, that can be quite a scary process, and it can feel quite unsafe in our body because it feels like we're putting ourselves into a new and unknown situation, and believing we can have something different and aren't victim to our current circumstances can feel scary because we're almost risking embarrassment, not getting what we want, future hurts, etc. But the power of now is that it's in the current moment that we can start to change and believe in something different. So it's about really bringing our attention and our energy into the present moment, not worrying about the past and letting that restrict us. And I just did a video recently actually on not letting past experiences affect our future, so I'll link that. But also not putting our energy too much into the future, because that's what can cause anxiety, is if we are looking at the future, thinking about different scenarios and negative scenarios, and then we can actually get triggered just by imagining future scenarios that haven't even happened yet. The other great thing about the power of now, or mindfulness as a practice, which is being in the present moment as much as possible, is not only can we start to change from that present moment and start to pick new behaviours and outcomes by really focusing on what we're doing now, rather than going into automatic patterns of thought and behaviour, is that we can also bring more awareness to how we are feeling in a moment-to-moment basis. So the more awareness you can bring internally and energy that you can bring internally to understand how you're feeling and how that's affecting your behaviours, is you can then better identify what limiting beliefs or doubts or fears or lack of confidence could be showing up here that is causing me to push this person away, or not go for that job that I really want, or say these things in defense because I'm worried about getting hurt. So the power of now has multiple benefits, or the practice of mindfulness, in that it keeps our attention on when we can actually change, which is only now, because the now moment is always what we're living in, and not wasting energy on the past or the future. And that's going to help us shift faster. But also it brings awareness to, as I say, those automatic patterns of thinking, some of those feelings that we might feel in our body, that nervousness or tension that we might not have a conscious thought around. And then we can bring awareness to, well, when do these feelings and thoughts come up? Where do I need to build my confidence? What beliefs are holding me back? And actually start to change some of those. So it then creates more momentum and progress to change even faster and further, and break through some of those patterns that have been holding us back. So another great book. And then the last two that we're going to speak about, so we've had mindset and psycho-cybernetics, which were very much foundational about, yes, we can change and how we can start to change. There was Fearless and the Power of Now, which is really tackling that not good enough fear, which we see really holds people back a lot, and then bringing our energy into and our power into the now moment so that we can change, and also using mindfulness as a practice to bring down our emotions and become more calm and centered and work through some of those emotions. So the last two are more about, once we start on this process of changing some of those fears in the now moment, what are some of those bigger things that we might want to change in our lives, and how can we go about that? So the first one is Lost Connections by Johann Hari, which looks like this. And what Johann Hari talks about in this book is some of the causes of depression and the solutions to that. So previously, it was believed that depression was always caused by a chemical imbalance in the brain, and therefore taking medication topped up that hormone that our body was struggling to produce, and therefore would fix those depression symptoms. However, over time, what's been found is that there's a lot of people with depression who take that medication, and over time try different medications, increase the amount that they're taking, and it still doesn't make a material difference to those low thoughts, low mood, and negative patterns of thinking. Or it might do in the short term, but not necessarily in the long term. So, after about 9 to 12 months, some of the symptoms start to reappear, the dose is increased, and that's the cycle that goes on for a long time. So Johann Hari started to work with doctors and investigate this and reveal some of the faults in the current or the previous ways of treating depression, and looked at alternative reasons that might be causing that feeling. And that includes things about how we live in modern life. So he talks about how we've lost some of our connection to a wider community outside of our immediate family, and because of some of how we live our modern life, we're not necessarily as vulnerable or connecting with people in the same way. He also talks about having purpose and passion in our jobs, so it's not just earning money, but feeling like you're part of a team and have an influence over the outcomes of the job. And because there's a lot of big companies now, which wasn't the same 50 or 100 years ago, people can work in these big companies, and even though they're very successful by societal means, a good income, good job title, do interesting work, lead a team, it doesn't feel like they're successful because they can't necessarily see how their role contributes to the bigger purpose of these huge global companies or huge, companies within a country. And also they're comparing themselves to several people who are even more senior within these big companies. So before, the companies would be a lot smaller, there was a lot less power inequity and income inequity between the people at the top of the company, the middle of the company, and the bottom. So because of that, because it was a smaller team, smaller company, generally people felt like they had more contribution, their ideas were listened to, they could affect change within that company, and therefore could see the bigger purpose in their role, whereas it's harder to do that in these bigger companies. There are several other aspects that he goes into within this book, but if you want to change your life and you want to build your confidence to do that, or you've built your confidence but there's still bigger changes that you want to make, or maybe you feel okay on a day-to-day basis but you feel like you could be a lot happier and you're not sure what it is that's stopping you, or perhaps you've even had depression in the past or are suffering with depression and aren't finding the treatments that you're getting helpful, this is just a really interesting book about creating a life that we love, or you will love, and finding that happiness and joy, because we can get caught up in modern life and it doesn't always give us what we think it will. And the final one, which I don't actually have a physical copy of again because I read it on my Kindle, is the only dating book that we're going to talk about, and that is called Attached by, let me just get this right, Amir Levine and Rachel Heller. And that talks about adult attachments, which shows up in all areas of life, but particularly in romantic relationships and dating. And it talks about the different kinds of attachment styles. So broadly, you can be securely attached as an adult, which means that you generally see the best in people, you can be vulnerable, intimacy feels normal to you, you can communicate in a healthy way and get close to people, but also have a level of independence so that you're not dependent on others for your happiness. Or there's the insecure attachment style, of which there's a few different kinds, and I'll actually go into that in our next video, where it's more difficult for you, perhaps because of how you've grown up or experiences as an adult, to get close to people and be vulnerable and communicate your needs and build those healthy connections in the long term. And what the book does is talks about that theory of different attachment styles, talks about the different attachment styles, secure being one, and there's multiple insecure ones, what that looks like in day-to-day dating and relationships and in your social life in general, and then helps to think about what sort of partners are going to be best suited for you based on your attachment style and theirs, and how to become more secure over time. And as I say, we're going to do a deep dive into attachment theory and a bit more about the different attachment styles, particularly the insecure ones, and what in this book and attachment style content that's been developed since that is useful, but also there's the health warning along with that. So what's useful about this book is being able to self-analyze, okay, what sort of attachment style do I have? What behaviours do I see within myself in dating which are positive or might be getting in the way? Do I have a secure or an insecure attachment style? What does that insecure attachment style look like, if that? And how can I then become more secure? That's why it's helpful. But what we'll deep dive into in the next video is more of a health warning about how some of that theory can be applied in dating extremely early on, you know, from a couple of dates or a few conversations, and how we can jump to conclusions based on this theory. And it is only one theory when it comes to dating and relationships and how people relate to each other. So it's useful from a self-awareness perspective to identify where there might be some insecurities or lack of confidence that therefore you might need to work on. And there are several techniques to do that, a lot of which they go through in the book or we talk about on this channel, and other sort of mindset and confidence coaches talk about. So now we've gone through those 6 recommended books, which, as a reminder, are all linked below in the Amazon reading list. I'll just mention this one, which I've just got to have a read of. It's called The Body Keeps Score, and it's about how when we go through trauma we can embed that in our brain, but also our body, and therefore how our bodily responses could tell us where we maybe have some unresolved trauma, which therefore results in insecurities or lack of confidence that we need to work on. So I haven't started this yet. I was recommended it by a few different people. So I'll give this one a go, and if it's any good, we'll do a community post on that and also add it to the Amazon reading list. So if you ever in the future are looking for more recommended books, we will keep that Amazon recommended reading list up to date. So feel free to go on there and buy anything through there which sounds of interest. So thank you for joining us today. Hopefully that was useful. Thanks again to Steve at Join Success Coaching for the recommendation or the idea for this video. Would love to hear your thoughts below. Have you read any of these books? What did you think? What did you find useful or not so useful? Are there any other books that you've seen from a confidence mindset or dating and relationship perspective that you'd be interested to know more about, or you would like us to read and do a review on? Let us know down below. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So thank you for liking, commenting, sharing and subscribing, and see you in the next one. Thanks, bye.